And a very good evening, everybody. It's Monday night. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock. Hey, we're back live after another mini mid-season break. It's good to be back. My name is Graham. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Jason. Jason, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. Good to see you again. It was weird to take a 5-week holiday. So
Yeah, I know, right? Holy bones! I'm surprised you remember what this time zone feels like.
yeah, it was pretty funny talking to everyone in the States and then like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I took July off. And they're like, you took July off. I'm like, yeah, it's all used about maybe half my holidays for the year. So
Yeah, not bad, right? How does it feel? How does it feel to be emulating Norway? Like they take all of July off, so you're pretty much done what they do.
yeah, it's pretty good. Like I said, it was definitely worth it to go back home and see family and friends for a few weeks. And I did work remotely for a week, but everyone was gone from the office, so I basically turned on for 2.5 hours and then
Yeah.
shut the computer down for the rest of the day.
Unless any of them are listening to this particular episode, in which case Jason worked feverishly for the full contracted hours for that week, of course.
Of course, yes. Yeah,
Of
well, I don't
course,
have to
of
make up
course.
any time at all.
Oh no, none at all, none at all. Very good. So yeah, a bit of a special episode this week. A slight break from the norm, where we're dropping the kind of news story format, and rather than being tea and tops, it's a bit more like coffee and conversation this week. Because as I'm sure you've seen from our social media feed over the last week or two, Jason was fortunate enough to attend the National Sports Card Collectors Convention in Chicago. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about it. We haven't actually spoke too much between ourselves, so it'll be almost a natural conversation, if you will. I don't know too much about what Jason got up to outside of the social media posts, so we'll be going on that journey of discovery together. Before we do that, though, a little bit of housekeeping to do over with the launch of Threads. So, Mr. Zuckerberg's threat to Mr. Musk in the world of social media. We did run a small giveaway over there for on our first ever Threads post. So if you liked and commented, and you now follow us on Threads, thanks very much. We're doing a small giveaway of a Project 2020 card, and I'm pleased to announce that JP_Pierce is the lucky winner of that giveaway. The idea was to guess which card we were going to give away. Now nobody guessed it, nobody got it right. So we're actually giving away an Ermsey Jeter from Project 2020, which hopefully you can see on screen just now. My feed is shockingly behind what I'm actually saying. I'm working on about a 5-second delay right now. So that kind of sucks. But congratulations to JP_Pierce. I'll be messaging you later to get your address and we'll get that posted off to you. So yeah, thanks to everybody who's engaged with us on Threads. You can follow us over there, just like you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and Twitch. And I don't think I missed any, but go to teeandtops.com and you'll find all these wonderful places where you can follow us. And yeah, that gets that little bit of housekeeping out of the way. So let's settle in. I have a cup of coffee and I'm ready to listen to Jason speak at length for this episode. So I guess we should start with that pink thing hanging around your neck, sir.
Woohoo! So yeah, so I was lucky enough to have Lou and the Hall Very Good podcast came over to Scotland in March, and we got to hang out. Then thanks to Matt Mutton, who does the British Baseball podcast, and said, "Look, if you're in Scotland, you got to meet Jason." And we ended up hitting it off pretty well, enjoying each other's company. He's kind of like, well, if you were coming to the National, you can come crash with me in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which turns out it's about 45 minutes north of Rosemont in Illinois. So I was like, well, it's going to work out fine with my family holiday. Along this work lets me work remotely for a week. It should be all good in the hood, and work was happy with that. And so, I did the family holiday, worked for a week, and showed up, Tuesday morning to Chicago, and Lou picked me up from the airport. Actually, no, he didn't. I checked into the hotel for the first night and a half. Was managed to squeeze in a White Sox Cubs game when I was there, and
nice.
and then Lou got into the National, so he was able to get me media pass through the people in there, and it was pretty awesome to have the early access before even the VIP access to go cruise around and see everything as everyone was setting up. So I kind of went, hey, look, I've got a pass. Does this get me in? And security just waved me through. I'm like, okay,
There you go. Nice
here
one.
I go.
You get to use the toilets where they're still clean, right?
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't that bad. So obviously, it's a massive convention center, and from what I understand, it was about a third bigger than it was 2 years ago previously.
Wow.
So it was huge, and I quickly found out that one, Chicago's hot in July.
Yeah, I saw a lot of posts in the build up to it, and from some comedians in the US car groups encouraging everybody to wear deodorant because the last thing they want is like 20,000 sweaty dudes. Like it's like shutting this convention center.
That was pretty much spot on there. Like I was pretty jet lagged because I took the red eye from Seattle to Chicago, and I went out. I was like, oh, I should go get a haircut and a beard trim. And I went outside to go across the street where there's a giant mall that's like outlet malls of Chicago or something like that there. But there was a food court there, so it was maybe a 10-minute walk most. And I was drenched in sweat from going across the street in that sucker. I went back and laid in my bed for a while, and it really was like, is this a good idea to go down to South Chicago to watch a baseball game? I don't know if I'm gonna get stabbed there or die from the heat. Hopefully, we'll figure it out.
It could be either one of those two, to be fair. So, how was the South Side? I mean, we obviously hear the stories about it's basically on fire all the time, but I understand it's not actually that bad.
No, it's kind of like where everyone comes to Edinburgh and says, "Don't go to Leith." I mean, obviously Leith is very gentrified now, but
oh my god, yeah, I was going to say you're going to get yourself in trouble for saying that now.
Yeah, it was fine. So what was really cool, the stadium was actually really awesome. Like you always hear how like, oh, it's the last of the kind of cookie cutter stadiums there, but it was really well done. Like it was not a bad seat in the house. It was, and I ended up getting really good seats because when you have one person to worry about, you can get good seats fairly cheap. So apparently you could see me every time they threw a pick off to first base. And I was in the background there because the guy next to me kept showing me clips that his friends were sending them. Like, look, I can see you there. So I was like, oh, cool. Which reminds me, I need to go watch the game to see if I can see myself there. But it was, it's right on the South line. So, from 10-minute walk from the stadium to the line, and that got me up to the blue line, which eventually got me back up to Rosemont up that way. But yeah, it was fine. It wasn't there. My Uber driver did suggest that I don't leave the 2 or 3 block radius of the stadium, but you'll be fine. Just don't leave that little bit. You'll be fine. So,
yeah. So it's in the immediate vicinity. It's quite safe, I guess. But
so yeah, it was fine. They said if you head southeast, that's where it gets really, really rough. But they said you'll be fine from there. So I mean, I didn't feel anything there, but it was weird because again we've been to Wrigley, so I assumed it would be kind of like built in like Wrigley, and there'd be a bunch of stuff around there. Nope, it's very residential, and there's a giant parking lot, and then there's a stadium. And that was it.
Oh, really? So, that's it? Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, when we went there before, we walked around the stadium, we kind of checked things out. You can't really do that there, so. You kind of go for the game, and that was about it. So, but saying that, like I said, I loved it. It was really cool. We're impressed by this stadium. Obviously, I was too early to see Tim Anderson get knocked out, but that's another story.
That has just been the best baseball story of the season so far, I think. Goodness me. As a wise man once said, you fuck around, you find out. And, oh my god, yeah. Gwen's giving us some songs here.
Yeah. There was no Leroy Brown.
Yeah, of course, and good evening, Glenn. So I should have acknowledged your earlier message. How bad of me.
But yeah,
that's good. I mean, so that's done both ballparks in Chicago. That's another one ticked off the list, I guess. So that's in that little corner of the world. That's well, it's not called Miller Park anymore now. What's the Milwaukee and both in Chicago,
something like that?
Is it? Oh my god!
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like it's still Miller Park. It's still
Miller Park. Yeah,
it's still Safeco.
Yeah. So yes, I guess you've ticked off those 3 now. You've covered that little area of America quite nicely.
I'm glad I did. Like I said, it was absolutely worth it. Like, if you get a chance, you're Chicago, like absolutely, you need to see Wrigley, without a doubt. But if you have time to go see the White Sox, go down there. You should. Absolutely. It's super easy to get by the subway. So.
Yeah, I think if we'd had another couple of days when we were over there for your birthday, I think we probably would have done it, right? But we just put Milwaukee and obviously doing the Cubs just ranked them ahead of where we were going to spend our time. They might even have been out of town. I don't even remember.
They were
it feels like ever so long ago that we were in Chicago. You're going to tell me in a minute it was like 12 years ago, and I'm going to feel like a fat old man again.
No, it's not quite that bad, but yeah, it's creeping up there. But no, apparently it's not often they're in town at the same time. So that was why we couldn't see it. Whereas we literally got off the plane and then drove immediately to Milwaukee to catch the Brewers game, and then drove back down
quite literally straight up. Well, I'd been there. I got in a day early, but yeah, we were picking up compadres on the way to Milwaukee. I remember we picked up Ross and just threw him in the car and drove straight up to Milwaukee. It was
it Ross with me? Was me and Paul, or did you guys? I can't remember. Yes,
so you guys
definitely had you and Nick are in. Yeah.
Yeah, so Simon and I flew up the day before, and we stayed at not O'Hare, the other airport. I can't remember. Midway, yeah, we stayed down there, and we drove up to O'Hare, and then met up with you guys. But Ross was the last one in, and we picked him up literally as we were driving up the road. Because you remember we came screeching up to the arrivals at O'Hare in our in our camper, not a camper van, in our like our
SUV,
soccer mom, not even an SUV. It was what we here in the UK would refer to as a people carrier, a Dodge Caravan, I believe it was, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, I just went screeching straight up to straight up to Milwaukee, which was good times. Yeah, it was good times. Anyway, we're not here to reminisce about middle-aged guys trying to remember in which order they arrived in Chicago. I do remember that Nick Smugger brought wings from Buffalo as well, which was quite good. I mean, they were cold by the time they got there, but
they were still good.
Yeah. So a game of baseball out the way, and then I guess the main event started, right? So you had access on the Wednesday, is that correct?
Yeah, I went down Wednesday morning because I was killing time because there's no point for Lou to come pick me up. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go down there and see if I can get my press pass. And then that took all of like 5 seconds. Literally, it was like, show me an ID and a business card. And I was like, okay, that was it. And they go, all right, here's your press pass.
An ID and a business card. How did you get by in the business card?
I had them printed when I was in the States.
Oh, did you get them done? Oh, nice.
I got them done. Yeah,
I didn't realize you'd got them done. That's
yeah. I printed out like 500 of them, which would have been really helpful if we actually put our email address there, because we'll talk about the dealers in a bit. But yeah, they're still stuck in the 90s. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They're still waiting on the AOL dial-up to go there. But yeah, and then I kind of just went, okay. And oh man, there was a huge queue of people waiting for the VIP early entrance that day. So there must have been a couple hundred people trying to get into that early entrance to see what was there. And I was just kind of sitting there and I was kind of looking around and I was like, well, I got nothing else to do. And I really don't want to go back outside again. So I just kind of walked up to the security guard and go, I've got a press pass. Does this get me in now? And he's like, yeah, go for it. Oh, okay. So, got to cruise around and see everything that was being set up. A lot of people were, still setting everything up for that day. I got in trouble for going into the heritage auctions section that was not complete yet, as they were putting all their pop art stuff that was up there. And I had wandered in there and started looking at stuff to take pictures for you guys. And I immediately had security all over me to say, hey, look, we're still putting stuff up here. Can you please leave the area?
So you didn't manage to pocket that $6 million Mickey Mantle card that they had on their stand now.
That was funny because I walked by at that time 3 times before I realized, oh, that's that Mickey Mantle. To be fair, it was just on a plinth and a glass display case, and there was nothing saying that this was the Mickey Mantle. And it wasn't until I because I wanted to canvas everything because one, I was looking for Mill Creek Sports, and they're based out of Mill Creek, Washington. And it turns out my brother knows a guy that works for him. They used to work together back at the company F5 20 years ago. So he texted his buddy Patrick and goes, look, my brother's going to be there. Keep an eye out for him. He'll come say hi. So the first people I did is like, all right, well, let's go find out where he is and introduce myself, which was really cool. And then started walking around everywhere because I realized quite quickly with everyone outside waiting to queue up, it was like, this is going to be my only time to kind of get my bearings because they had you in like row 100, row 200, and it went up to like 3,300. So there's roughly 30, yeah, it was huge. And so I was kind of like, okay, let's go get our bearings. Let's go figure out where the big stuff is, like the Fanatics tops, upper deck kind of thing, like there. And just kind of on. And then you kind of had the middle bit, which is all the breaker section, and they were just constantly breaking. And which is a real shame it was in the middle because you had to pretty much walk through them to get to the autographs on the other side.
Oh, okay. So it's not very well planned out. Yeah. It's funny they put breakers in the center again. They did that last year as well. But I guess Fanatics would have been pushing their new live platform, right? Which I gather is a bit of a competitor to Whatnot / TikTok shopping / whatever. It's not just about breaks. I think you can sell singles and stuff on there too, from what I understand.
So they were pushing it pretty hard. I did chat to a couple reps from there, and I think it just launched like a few days before the national had come out. So they were definitely pushing it there, and I had a nice conversation with it. Again, saying that I came all the way from Scotland was an easy icebreaker, and everyone was like, "Oh shit, you're from Scotland?" I was like, "Yeah, my accent really says I come from Scotland." And then they go, "Yeah, I can understand you." I was like, "Yeah, no, okay, I live in Scotland." So
yeah. We can hopefully make that story more believable next year.
Yeah. I mean, after 3 weeks in the state, any kind of accent I had was long gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were pushing that. There was I was really surprised at how small the Fanatics top section was. I expected it to be much, much bigger and kind of have, I don't know, more things to engage with there. It really was more of a sports collectors convention than say, here's Tops and our flagship stuff there. I mean, Tops really just had their card trade wall. You had your pack redemption, and that was it. Like, I was really surprised how tiny it really was. Because I think you'd asked me, I said, have you seen the Tops thing yet? And I'd walked by it and hadn't even noticed it because it was so small.
Oh my God, that's funny. Yeah, I guess it's more just an assumption, you know, that you just assume they're going to have like a big stand and lots of stuff going on. But I guess when you have a monopoly, you don't really need to bother.
Yeah, that was kind of it. I mean, the Fanatics thing, they had they were connected to the Tops, and they had a giant kind of like a baseball tonight kind of set up there where you could have like a baseball field. You can sit in the stands. They were interviewing people there. But like I said, once it opened up to the VIPs and the general public, that place was just rammed. And it just, they were interviewing people every half an hour. So it was like, okay. And then they were right next to, oh gosh, I'm trying to think who is Sports Card Investors, and then right next to Golden. Yeah. So it was like you kind of had that area of all these people. Like the sports investor guy had a bid. I think it's Scott or Ian or something like that. I can't remember what the guy's name is.
Scott or Ian is two really wild.
Something like that. I know I'm not even close. And then Gary Vee was right there too. So it was really interesting to see
the original internet windbag. I love it.
I walked by him a few times, and yeah, people were like, "Oh, you don't want to say hi to Gary Vee?" I'm like, "No, I'm good, man. Like, I don't play his zoo game or whatever."
Yeah, I say Zootropolis. It's not Zootropolis. That's a flipping Disney movie.
That's a Disney movie, yeah. Zoopedia or whatever it is there. So he was definitely hawking all the stuff out there. But yeah, you can see him. He was cruising out about. Like, there was a few guys. There's so do you remember back when Homage had that guy doing that Wax Pack Wednesday, and I reached out and said, "Hey, look, you're using my hashtag," and then they stopped immediately.
Yes, yeah.
So the guy that was doing it, his name was Scott Radinsky or Radowski or something like that. There, he was there interviewing for Fanatics. So I think I'm gonna try to get him on the show when we get a chance, and I'm gonna just go, "Hey, that match at the National, it's a good time catching up. Let's have a chat." And then I want to interview him and then drop that. Hey, whatever happened to your Mosh thing? But yeah, so he was going about cruising out about there. But yeah, so you had like the big ones, but then it was like everything under the sun you can think of. Baseball, basketball, hockey. I mean, there was the guy that had just Japanese baseball cards there. Jerseys.
Yeah, that looked pretty phenomenal. Yeah,
It was pretty cool. I did spend some time looking at his stuff there. I mean, he had Sarajevo cards. You know, there was obviously a lot of Otani stuff there. There was a guy that had just bobbleheads.
Otani, who is he any good?
Yeah,
I haven't heard of him.
I've heard. I think he's having an okay season. I don't know. His team might suck.
Might have heard, yeah.
Bobbleheads. There was cool stuff like vintage glassware from like the 60s and 70s.
Nice.
if you needed a Chicago Cubs ashtray, you could buy that because so yeah, she's kind of cruised around. Definitely dealers kind of had a specialized. I mean, some guys had dragged junk wax all out there. They were trying to sell for like $50 a box, and I was just like, yeah, no. And then so they had the breakers there. I literally only stopped there to stop at Leighton's because they were giving freebies away every day, and then kept going on through.
That's right. Every single day they did, right? Yeah, they were doing T-shirts and beer koozies and goodness knows whatever else.
Yeah, the thing that goes on the back of your phone you can hold it.
Oh yeah. Like we're so not cool, are we? Is it not called like a pop cup or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. So they had those, and there was something else there. I literally, they just started, all right, what are you giving away for free today? Here you go. Thanks.
Nice. See you later.
Yep. By day 2, they did not care. Like they were like first day, they're like, hey, yeah, you got to sign up for the app and do this. And yeah. And then by day 2, they're like, yeah, just take some stickers too. Make sure you get some stickers. They were not fussed. And then so then you went to kind of the other side. And again, there's more kind of stuff there. So they had the Arena Club, which that was the surprise that Derek Jeter was there.
That's so that's the Derek Jeter backed collectors community, I suppose. Like they offer grading and they offer consignment and vault services, I think, as well.
Yep.
I remember we spoke about it with a show, I think, towards the back end of last year when it was announced. But I did see a picture, funnily enough, on social media of the captain whizzing about in a golf cart. I did wonder why he was there. I thought maybe it was a Topps thing because he's got an exclusivity deal with Topps for autographs as well. But I didn't consider the Arena Club.
Yep, it was there for the Arena Club, the pub. So we had heard through the back door that he was going to be there every day, and but it wasn't announced. It was one of those things that kind of, hey, look, surprise, the captain's here. So
nice, yeah.
So he was over there, and then there was that guy who does Hometown Heroes, and I kind of posted a picture with the Gavler. And he takes.
Yeah. So this looks kind of interesting, actually. This might be one that we spin out into a segment on a future episode because it does actually sound kind of interesting. It's a bit sort of physical card collecting and sort of a bit NFT as well, right?
Yes, that's how it is. So they open the packs, they hold on to the card for you, but then you get an NFT to show you the ownership of the card. So that way, if you want to trade it or sell it or do whatever you want to it, you just pass on the token to it, and so you don't actually ever get the physical card. But you can show proof of ownership on there. So the guy, I randomly chatted to the CEO who started it all up, and he's keen on coming and talking about it come September, October, because he knows that we're more of a basketball audience in Europe than a baseball audience. And I didn't want to say, I didn't want to say, well, we kind of focus on baseball cards there. But but I understand.
Yeah, we really picked that niche market, right?
Yeah. So I was like, all right. But he was a super nice guy. He spent a good 10 minutes telling me all about it and how it all worked and all there. And obviously, because we dabbled in the NFTs, I could at least talk the lingo with him there. And it was pretty cool. Like I said, you take kind of comic book heroes from your hometown team and get the cards for it. And they had the variations with it as well. So, it was a cool concept there. And they were right next to Whatnot, which had a big presence there, and then tons of more shows, and then they had the whole TriStar Pavilion over that way, and you get all the autographs that were there. So there was, 40 a day, 50 a day, so from all the sports across the board. So it was massive. So I'm really glad I had that first couple hours to kind of cruise out and about and kind of like, okay, now I kind of know where things are, and then when they let everyone in, it was like, okay, I'm really not going to have a chance to talk to these guys. So I better chat to them now because they're more interested in business than talking to some guy. Hey, look, I'm from Scotland. How you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That only plays so often, and I guess for so long as well. Like you say, if you're getting in early, but once the hordes are in, it's strictly business, I suppose. After that,
pretty much, yeah. And even by the time when things closed, we were able to stick around about. But everyone was so shattered every day. They're just like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I would just talk to people and like, I just plan to go back and sit in the hotel pool and then eat and go to sleep.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. It must be pretty intense to be a dealer or an exhibitor at the show. It must be. I mean, I've worked trade shows in the past in my previous career, but absolutely nothing on the scale like that. And yeah, I mean, they're long ass days, that's for sure. So yeah, I can only imagine how these guys feel at the end of a hectic day of doing business at the national. But so yeah, it's pretty cool. That's good. I think that's the neat thing about getting access on the Wednesday. Well, it is still a kind of setting up day. You know, when guys maybe are more inclined to have a bit of a chat and, you know, do a bit of networking rather than, like you say, just being all strictly business.
Yeah, I mean, that was good. So it was really interesting. I realized right away that my card idea of trying to trade up was not going to happen. They were all business, and luckily I'd met a few people here and there. And Patrick from Mill Creek Sports and all of Glenn's OBC guys were super awesome and gave me a moment of time there. But again, they were there to sell and trade themselves. So you know, it was just kind of like I realized pretty quick that they were just all about the business. And so I would go and approach people that were all set up and had nothing to do and chat to them for a while. So I ended up chatting to quite a few people that way because they were done for the day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, even before the show had opened, you know, the dealers are going around and buying as much stuff as they possibly could. You know, they were going, this is my chance to get in before the general public's in and kind of see what was there. And then chatting to the various people who were buying stuff, because that was the first question everyone says, like, what are you buying? What are you looking for to buy here? When I told them my budget was zero. Ended a lot of conversations pretty quickly. So
yeah. Well, at least you're setting the expectation earlier, not just stringing these dudes along, right? Yeah. That would be. I can imagine that would annoy people more than anything else. It's way better to be upfront that you're there for a chat and to get information more than anything else, I suppose. That's kind of interesting. So you have dealers buying from dealers like super early.
Yeah. So again, like to give you an example, is like I ran into Donna, who's been a guest on our show, and Heavy J, and they were doing Ginter digging, and a good story about how I ended up running into Donna there. But yeah, that was there. They're going out from dealer to dealer to find out who had Ginter, and then they were just digging through everything. So I can't remember which one of Gren's OPC guys I finally got to meet, and he was busy going through all the cards trying to find what he could before the show started. So I had a brief conversation with him, and he was clearly busy digging through cards. So I was like, I understand. Like I said, this is your chance to do it now while you're wide awake and all your responsibilities are, you know, gone for the moment, and somebody was manning the booth while he was away. So yeah, I was trying to be real respectful to everyone about the kind of their time, because I knew they were there for work and play. But yeah, it was definitely some work for them.
Yeah, definitely work for them as well. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we obviously got to catch up with a lot of obviously a lot of contacts from your rather successful series over on Ball Caps and Bagpipes with the card artists as well, which was kind of good. It was nice to see you meeting these guys. And you know, obviously you can take us through some of the folk that we met, but I guess a personal highlight from when watching from afar was getting to meet Josh Trout, right? Getting to meet him in person.
Yeah, Josh was a good one there. So he had reached out and said, "Hey, I see you're at the National. Do you have another media pass?" And I was like, "Sorry, Josh, I don't have another media pass." But I do know some people that like could make it every day, so their media passes were being passed around from person to person. There was one person, there was alternating days with another guy with his media pass.
Oh, nice.
Josh is much taller than I expected. We were trying to figure out where each other was, and they kept looking for the shorter guy, and in came Josh. Was, oh, hey, look, it's Josh. Oh, wow. So it was good to talk to Josh and catch up with him. And he ended up hanging out with me and Lou all day Friday, and we cruised around networking, seeing everybody that way. So that was really cool because he introduced us to Ken Carl. You would recognize Ken Carl from his artwork on social media and like that. And he was a super cool dude. And we chatted to him for quite some time. And then he introduced us to, so it was Saturday. Yeah. So Saturday, we had Lux was the sponsor for there. For the private VIP room, and they were having guest lectures that were going on there. And again, media passes got us right in.
Yeah,
not that it was checking that or not. Could have walked right by. And we ended up, Ken was actually being interviewed on a panel there. So do you remember Andy Friedman, who came out with a series with Topps, kind of did the watercolor cards kind of right after Project 7?
Yeah.
He was there. So he was interviewing him, Ken Carl, one of the guys who did Project 2022 from the football ones from over here.
Yep.
I can't remember. I think he was the Polish guy. And then Chuck Styles was on after that. And so we walk in, and Ken, I waved to Ken. Ken said, "Hey!" So it was pretty sweet to be like, "Oh, cool! You actually know who I am." And so it was fun talking to Ken. And then when we were waiting there, we ran into one of Lou's guests. His name's Tucker, and he is the guy that runs Field of Dreams. He does all the social media for Field of Dreams and that, and been doing it for 5 years there. So he'll be a future guest on ours. He's a really interesting guy and really well spoken there. So we ended up chatting for him for a long time. And then when Ken finished, we ended up chatting to him, and then Chuck Styles came on, and that was kind of fun hearing Chuck Styles talk about that. And then when Chuck Styles finished, we would approach Chuck Styles to say hello, and that was pretty awesome because Lou had gone first and kind of said, "Hey, big fan of your work." Bought a piece of I think he bought his Josh Gibson card, and Chuck actually signed it for him, and then so when it was my turn to talk to Chuck, I'm like, "Chuck, we kind of actually know each other," and you could see he was like, okay, here's a big white guy that talks funny. Like, where would I know this guy from? And then I was like, oh, look, I'm T and Topps. I did a print runs. He's like, my man. Oh, shit. Yeah. So that was pretty sweet that he actually realized that that was us that did that. So that was pretty cool. I ended up talking to Chuck for like 10 minutes. And super cool guys. So friendly. It was fun to talk to him. And we left to go talk to somebody else, and we saw Chuck was by himself, and we'd just gone back into them to go chat to him some more, and he was on his way to go explore the floor. But it was pretty cool to see that we made a small dent in the world of Project 70 where people knew who we were because we did the damn print runs.
Doing the print runs, yeah, and getting in trouble for posting links to the podcast and stuff.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yes. So it's cool. And same thing. I met Christopher Torres, who obviously CRT Sports Cards. I ran him multiple times there, and had a nice conversation with Chris about Project 2020, Project 70, and how fun it was. And we were supposed to meet up in Seattle, and he got stuck at work, so he couldn't make it to the game. And he was busy hunting for his TTO6 cards that he was working on set. And so he it was good to chat to him for a little bit. Of course, ran into Paul Lesko and signed his shirt for us. So that was pretty sweet. I wish I would have had more time to talk to Paul, but he was looking pretty exhausted, and he was on the way out of the door.
He's going to be pretty busy on the old socials over the next little while as well, with the Panini versus Fanatics antitrust case that just dropped over the weekend as well. So Paul Lesko, go find him on Twitter and follow him if you don't already. Amongst other things, I believe does sports card or trading card related legal commentary, and it's pretty fascinating. And with the Fanatics versus Panini really starting to heat up, or Panini versus Fanatics really. Hopefully it'd be good. It'd be great to get Paul on. I'm excited to get him on if we can. So
I need to send him something. I completely forgot to bring something to him. I had packed it away to send stuff back to this over here, as I had moved all my stuff from the States finally over here after 20 years. So it was probably time to get everything I own over this way. So I think I have. I don't think there's anything left over that way. But yeah, so yeah, I think Paul will be there, and I realized when I saw him that I had something that was going to give him, and then completely missed it. So, but oh well, it was fun. So yeah, so
next year we can make up for that next year.
Yes. So yeah. So and so yeah. So Donna. So this was Wednesday night. No, Thursday night. It was because our first day that Lou was there to go see it, and it was like 5 o'clock, and we're pretty exhausted because we had been networking the whole time, and Lou hadn't seen anything. We were just gonna get the lay of the land, and yeah, it was 30 plus degrees, and I don't know how humid it was, and we were exhausted, and we're walking out the door, and I hear this, Jason. And I was like, what? And look, and there was Donna there. She had her suitcase full of Ginter stuff and with over all her stuff there. And it was awesome to see Donna. We ended up chatting for 45 minutes, and then we ended up, she had there's a guy on Instagram called like Ginter Gold, and he has like the biggest collection of Ginter cards out there. So we ended up chatting to him for quite some time. But yeah, it was pretty cool to just like randomly run into people and oh wow, okay, that's so awesome to see you.
That's so. I mean, considering the fact that we're a very niche little endeavor here, this live show / podcast, and Donna is one of only a handful of guests that we've had on. You know, we had a little burst of getting guests on, and then we sort of defaulted down to the the you and I dynamic, which is absolutely fine. There's anything wrong with that. Before everybody thinks that I'm complaining, I'm certainly not complaining. So we've not had like frightfully many guests on, and to randomly meet one of them as you're exiting an event with like 30,000 people in attendance, that's quite the random odds. That
yeah, and I mean, she knew. I mean, I was gonna be there, so I posted everything on social. So she's just like, "Oh, I forgot to reach out to you," and I figured I was there all 4 days, so I'd run into you at some point in time. But she goes, "The biggest thing is like, I wasn't sure if I call you Bubba or Jason." I was like, hey, if you would have said Bubba, I would have turned around too. So yeah. So it was cool. I like that, and then we had Heavy J, and we chatted to him for a long time, and yeah, it was just so much fun, kind of just chatting to everybody and see what they were collecting and what they were looking for, and just the amount of sports memorabilia and political memorabilia. The one that really stuck out was you can get a Donald Trump bounce check for $17,000. Or you can get an Abraham Lincoln autograph for $18,000, and I thought, that's awesome. I don't know, man. If I've spent that kind of money,
Jesus, yeah.
for an extra £1,000 to get Abraham Lincoln, I think I know what I'm gonna go for.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've got a funny feeling that Donald Trump bounce checks aren't going to be in short supply either.
Yeah. And then I met this guy. Funny, Jay just texted me right there. So Jay, he worked with Greg Krangler to come out with a kind of a painting of the Negro Leagues there. And it turns out Jay is from the same area of I'm from. So we had this conversation of, again, so I wear my kind of Seattle top because that was a conversation starter for a lot of people to ask you if I was from Seattle, and they were trying to sell me stuff there. And Jay's like, "Are you from Seattle?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm from Bellevue." He's like, "Oh, I'm from Kirkland," which is right next door there. So we're probably like 15, 20 minutes away from each other growing up. Ended up having a long conversation about growing up in the area. And turns out he's in Edinburgh, I think, this week or next week. Let's see, what is Jay's doing? Yep. I think it's next week he's showing up, and so I'm going to go out for drinks. The guy, and he specializes in Negro League stuff, which was really odd because it all started with a conversation that he was selling Negro League beer cans that had come out recently, and I said, "Oh, I just worked on the campaign, and I had the Thunder Twins ale that just came out, or IPA that they have done there," and he's like, he stole my idea. I was like, well, I don't know who came first. So so it was really interesting, the kind of conversation, and talk to him for a bit. And then Greg Krangler is a good friend of Lou and Sean's, and so we were hanging out with him. So so it was really bizarre to see. If you're not familiar with Greg Krangler's work, he does amazing work. and to watch him talk to Dick Perez. You know who Dick Perez is.
Yep.
So if you're not familiar with Dick Perez, he is the Donruss King guy. So he was out there. Oh shit! That reminds me. I think I have an auto for you from Dick Perez.
Oh gosh. Oh,
wow. Yeah, because that was the Friday. Yes, and so to listen to Greg and Dick Perez chat back and forth about painting players and stuff like that was kind of like, wow, like this is two kind of masters talking about their crafts like that there, and it was super interesting to kind of just hang out and listen to that one and be a fly on the wall for that. So, which was hilarious because behind there's a guy, I don't know his name, but he's like the Hall of Fame painter. And they were like,
okay.
You should go talk to this guy over here. And we're like, but Dick Perez is right here. And he's like, yeah, I know, but the guy that paints the stuff at Hall of Fame is over here. Like, but it's Dick Perez. Like,
so that's very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, because they must have chatted for like 15 minutes in there. I don't know why it wasn't more popular or not, but I guess people were there to go and find cards and memorabilia and not necessarily talk to Dick Perez. And what are you really going to say other than I really enjoyed your work, and how did you pick your players every year, kind of thing? Or did Donruss tell you?
That's fair.
Yeah. After that, and I'm sure that's the same question he gets all the time. So, and then so it was cool. And then the other random story was I ended up chatting to a guy that I went to elementary school with. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, this is one of the things I was going to ask you. So you bumped into a dealer, and it turns out you were in the same elementary class. Is that right?
So he was in the other class than I was. So he was only in elementary school for 2 years, and then they moved to Maine. But we literally, again, wearing this shirt, people were like, "Oh, you're from Seattle?" I'm like, "Yes," and played the game. All right, where are you from? Bellevue. Okay, I'm from Bellevue. What part of Bellevue are you from? He's like, "Okay," and we realized, well, what elementary school did you go to? And I was like, Cherrycrest. He's like, no way. All right, what year did you graduate high school? I'm like, 94. He's like, get out of here. So he was in the opposite class that I was for 2 years, and we went through all the names of people we knew, and he was good friends with my neighbor just across the street, and ended up dating my neighbor down the road for a few years when they were in college. So had really, and he's keen to come on the show and talk about that. So he sells like kind of old time pictures and stuff like that. But it was just a small world of just a random conversation of like hey, you're wearing a Mariners shirt. Let's chat. So
yeah, that is wild, and it ends up being in the same elementary years, same school years. That's kind of crazy.
But the funny thing was, is I started pulling out pictures because I had posted my pictures of my 83 to 88 basketball season. Because all my pictures. I'm like, oh yeah, look,
bangers.
They're fantastic. And I was like, oh yeah, there's Tim. Like, you recognize Tim? Like, so it was really funny. And we obviously played on sports against each other, but didn't realize that. I mean, who do you remember when you're 10 years old? You played against some of the sports.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, lots of contacts made, which is good. Lots of networking done, and then of course, I guess the headline, the main event.
All those business cards. Those are the business cards from networking.
So this is the 19. Did we really do a business card and I didn't put the email address on it?
You did. That's right. I only printed off 400 of us.
400. Wow. I would like to point out, I did ask you to proof it before.
No, it was fine. So I left.
You can get it off the website, teamtops.com, teamtops.com.
So that's what was really interesting because again, I thought, well, it'd be a really easy thing to promote to people and go, hey, look, I live in Scotland. We have a podcast. Happy to have you on the show. You can talk about your shop or whatever you sell and give you 30 minutes or so of your time, and you can promote out here. And if you might get some business, you might not. And the answer I usually got was I stopped selling to Europe and UK because it's too damn expensive.
Too expensive. Yeah.
And I went, we all have ways around it. And if it's something that somebody really likes, they'll pay for it. And they're like, yep, can't be bothered. It's like, okay, what am I supposed to? And that was the response I got over and over again. And I was like,
Yeah.
really, like a half hour of your time to promote your business. And I was like, look, we have a U.S. audience there. We run the same circles there, so it's not like you're not going to get a reach that you want for it. But yeah, they're like, nah, not really interested because yeah, the guy that had like the bobbleheads had some really cool bobbleheads, and I thought that'd be a really interesting conversation of how you got into buying and collecting bobbleheads. And he's like, no, I can't be bothered. It's like, all right, well, because the same thing, if you see something you like, you're like, all right, well, I've got to pay for shipping for it. It's going to cost me £40. Fine, all right, I'll pay taxes. I'll get it over here somehow, but I'll pay it. And the guy's like, yeah, I just can't be bothered with this anymore. But a lot of it had to do with the new shipping regulations. You have to declare it and register a business thing. So the guy was like, it's too much of a hassle. And I was like, hey, you just send it as a gift.
Yeah. It's kind of it's I can understand why. You know what I mean? If you're an independent retailer running a business and you're ticking along quite nicely, and maybe 1 or 2% of your business is abroad, then it's taking up like 20% of your time. Then why would you? Like from a purely business standpoint, I get it, right? But
yeah,
it's still a nice to have conversation, like just to have a conversation with these, with these interesting collectors. But yeah, I guess it is what it is. I mean, this should only appear to be a good thing for those who run the shipping businesses, like Gizzy, who I don't actually hear talked about very much anymore. I wonder if everybody finally had enough of them and decamped elsewhere.
I've not seen anything in the chat about any shipping company lately, so whoever's doing it is doing really good.
Them. Yeah, so Gorilla Ship I think is quite popular, and I can't remember the name of the other popular one.
I know you're talking
about. So I know people do still use them. It's just a lot of the drama seems to have gone away, or maybe we're not moving in the right circles anymore. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, these guys should really be pushing forward and try to cash in. And if because we've seen with Layton's, they struck up a deal with. Oh God, now I can't remember who it is. You're gonna might have to fill while I Google this, but Layton's and Real Breaks, who are one of the largest Facebook, they were the largest Facebook breaker for a while, and they run their own live platform. Uncommon, they had struck up a deal with one of the US shippers where you could store your stuff at reduced rates and whatever else. So it seems like it would be boom time for these guys. But yeah, it's perhaps something to tap into. Another unfortunate side effect of Brexit.
Yeah. And then the other thing I thought was really interesting is a lot of those guys didn't have social media or websites. I was like, I mean, there were a lot of old white men there and, that own these businesses, and I was like, so I'd handed the business card, and they're like, you got an email? Like, it's on the website. He's like, yeah, I get that, but I don't have that stuff. So can I just have your email? So luckily I had my paint pen with me, and I could write my
Sharpie on that bitch. Yeah.
I was shocked by the amount of companies that didn't promote themselves or have websites even or social media. I was like, how can you not? I guess it said if you sell what you sell and you stay in your lane, you're absolutely fine, But I just thought it was bizarre that there was a large amount of people I kept running into that didn't have websites or didn't have any social media presence. And, I had a few business cards with AOL addresses on it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was kind of like, okay. So, I guess it depends on what your market is, and what it is there, and you come to the national, and a lot of the things at national was to show you who's got the biggest one. And so because that was I started a lot of conversations with people was kind of like, so what's your showcase card there? So when I spent a lot of time with the Mill Creek guys because I ended up knowing the guy through my brother, and they had various Mickey Mantle cards that were there. One was like 225,000, and Yeah, exactly. You know, it was out of my range there, and you know, they had multiple cards over $100,000 there, just kind of there. So it was an interesting way of kind of striking up a conversation with people to kind of go, okay, what's your showcase card here? And I go, do you actually expect to sell it? And like, no, but it's something to talk about. So gets the conversation started there. Yeah, so it was okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, to go back to your point on the lack of social media and whatever else, I guess it's something that we kind of take for granted, but it's really like the companies that we in the UK, I'm going to use some sweeping generalizations here, tend to deal with are the ones who have made an effort on that front then, like to be on social media and to put themselves out there and to have a website, which sounds incredibly basic in 2023 to have a website. I mean, even this hokey pokey little podcast has a website. But yeah, like I guess there's so much of this untapped because, like you say, the demographic, shall we say, of the typical card shop owner probably is more, well, let's say, more boomer than Gen Z, right? I think
Yeah,
that would be
absolutely.
fair.
That would be a fair assumption. There wasn't, you know what? It's funny you say that. The people who were the Gen X, Gen Z people, most of them were the breakers.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
No,
Doesn't.
so I mean, you're not going to amass a large amount of cards, as a boomer, as a not boomer, but a Gen Zer. But yeah, most of the people there, yeah, were, I'd say, 40 plus.
That's a familiar age range.
Yes. But actually, the interesting thing is that this was the first year they had Pokemon there, and they had
Oh, really? Okay.
Magic the Gathering there. So I kept seeing, I wouldn't say a famous football player, American football player, but a football player that I knew because he played for the Seahawks there. And the only reason I know him is because his Magic the Gathering cards were stolen out of his car back in the day.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, and they replaced them all for him, or Magic the Gathering gave him new cards and that there. But he was there at least 2 days that I saw him because he was hanging out in the kind of VIP area, and then there was the back room that was for like the real VIPs, for the athletes and stuff like that there. So, but it was interesting to see his crew guys that he was hanging out with. And they were all about all the Magic the Gathering cards and stuff like that. So there was a small area for that. There was people had brought Pokemon cards, and they had a Pokemon night there. So if you wanted to go out and go Pokemoning, they were doing that. I guess I should have said they had the trade night. So after the first night there was I think it was the sanctioned trade night up there. So you went upstairs to the second floor, and everyone was just kind of up there with the cards on the floor and trying to see if you wanted to buy, sell, or trade. That was really interesting to kind of see everyone doing that. Was a real shame they didn't kind of open up the giant. They had a giant ballroom that they had all the free autograph signing. I can't remember who was there. It was BJ Armstrong was one of the guys there, but it was a shame because it had all these. It was free. I could have got, like I said,
the name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, and they had that huge room they could have had open. It wouldn't have. We wouldn't have to put anything down there for it. They just had to open up for people to use, and people, it would have been really easy to kind of cruise out and about. But yeah, it was 5 o'clock at night, and I think it was even almost 6 o'clock at night there, and it was hopping. There was a lot of people there. There was somebody filming what was going on there, so obviously they got some filming stuff there. So it was kind of fun to kind of see that people were wheeling and dealing on the sides there. So they spent all day buying everything and then trying to flip it or try to bring it back.
Go trade it or swap it out or whatever. Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting that the first year of Pokemon, and I guess Magic's kind of in the news right now with Post Malone spending $2.6 million on the One Ring, and that's interesting because obviously it's the National Sports Cards Collectors Convention, and I guess traditionally always has been. But hey, it's everyone has to diversify, right? Not that they were in any trouble. I believe there was over 100,000 people attended over the course of the show. It was the largest that there's been so far. I think it was up 20-something% from last year. They had it last year, right? It wasn't like a COVID year last year. I don't think.
Yeah, last year was in Atlantic City.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and it was really interesting talking to a lot of people who had been there before and talking to the dealers. So apparently, again, it was like we thought. It was still stuck in the late 70s and the shag carpeting, and it had that stale cigarette smell that never goes away.
Yellow walls and that.
Yeah, that was pretty much, if you can think of like Vegas in the 70s. That was that's exactly what it was like. And what the interesting thing they said was there was an ATM across the street, and apparently people were waiting for you to get cash out and rob you. So
Jesus Christ,
multiple people got robbed. Like literally, somebody had like a car pull out in front of them and robbed them. And the guy out of the car and robbed them. Other stuff like that. So Atlantic City was promising better protection for when they got the bid in.
Really? Yeah.
And every dealer got $1,000 off their table if they decided to come back. But a lot of dealers said, yeah, I don't think I'd go back to Atlantic City. It was that dodgy that no one felt safe.
That is wild.
so everyone was like, yeah, I don't think I go back to Atlantic City again. So, and again, like with Chicago, there we go, Glenn. Yeah, there was. So I can't imagine. I mean, you can keep your cards on site there, but again, if you're walking around with thousands of dollars on the cards, like you could just get mugged for it. Like there, we guessed there was easily $1 billion worth of merchandise on the floor there.
Jesus Christ! Well, I mean, when you've got one Mickey Mantle at $6 million, and I saw a lot of MJ memorabilia floating about the Golden auction. Did you happen to meet the King of Collectibles? Did you see him?
He was there. I didn't bother. Like they were filming stuff. I couldn't. Same thing. It was.
Oh God, that means series 2, does it?
Yeah, I don't know if they were filming for that or what. I mean, it's Peyton Manning. Manning's pretty funny that there'll be series 2.
There is. There is going to be series 2.
So yes, he was filming. Bronstein from eBay was there. Yep. So he was, because I think he was the one that had the 26 Jordans that were trying to get a Beckett 10 out of there. So
oh God, yeah, that was a disgustingly horrible flex.
yeah, it didn't work out well for him because he was one of Glenn's buddies had a table right next to him. So
oh shit, okay.
Down there. So I happened to walk by his thing a few times, but they were gone by Saturday night. Like they didn't stick around for Sunday. So it was really interesting to see who had done what they wanted to do and gone. But yeah, it was Thursday and Friday were the huge days there, and Saturday you could definitely see a noticeable drop. And Sunday, not to say it was a ghost town, but it was super quiet. I was really surprised that Sunday was there and people had already packed up and started leaving.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of assume that Saturday would be your busy day, and like I say, Sunday being a getaway day, I guess, for a lot. I mean, a lot of people got a lot of miles to travel. You know, Chicago's way up north there, so yeah, kind of. You can kind of understand maybe some people packing up and heading out early, but yeah, I figured Saturday would be the super busy day.
But that was kind of my thoughts as well. I didn't know what to expect, so everyone said, you don't buy anything Thursday because that's the first day there, and prices will drop if it's still there on Saturday. And Saturday, like I don't know if it was the weather or there was something on, but there was definitely a noticeable drop of people that were there, and so who knows? So I didn't know what to expect, and then we knew kind of Sunday was kind of, we were just there kind of killing time before my airport there, and was this. Yes, we were trying to track down Lauren Taylor. That was what we were trying to do.
You've segued beautifully into the final question before we get a bit of a sum up and a reflection on the whole thing. But of course, we were lucky enough to bump into Lauren.
Yep, we did. So she was promoting her new art cards, and there. Yep. I'm sure you did, Glenn. I'm sure nobody wanted to bring their stuff back, so the more they could sell, they absolutely do that. So yes, so I think she was there Friday. Yeah, she was there Friday, and she was at the Ludex booth promoting her stuff there. So we'll go into the conversation of that. So they'd gone in Thursday night, guys. Everything printed had arrived that Thursday, and they spent all Thursday night putting everything in the packaging so they could sell it there.
Wow,
so they were pretty shattered. So her and her team were pretty shattered from there. But she was like, all right, well, I'll be in the Lugs group for 2 hours. So if you want to come say hi, we'll say hi. So she recognized me. So she was pretty much made my day because I was like, yeah. So I did tell her that we were coming. I said, oh, look, I'm actually at the National, before I go back home to Scotland, and we'll see you there. So she kind of looked up and then did that double take, like, oh shit, it's Teen Tops. How are you guys? So I was like, yes. And I did remind her that she owes me a game of pickleball. So
yeah.
So it was pretty cool. She came out, gave me a big hug. We chatted for a little bit there. She's like, look, it's super busy. Can you meet me back at the Lennox VIP room? And we'll have a chat there. She got busy chatting with people because, again, she was selling stuff. So we're like, all right, we're not going to push it, because Lou was keen to meet her and have her on the show. He's a big fan of her work there. And then she nipped out and we missed her again. So that's fine. She's working hard. And then saw her the next day, and she was having a drink. I was like, yep, it's probably a well-deserved drink there. And she's like, look, I'll be here if you want to catch me. And we couldn't make her then. So got in touch with us Saturday night and said, look, if you're still around, we'll come say hi. And she was there Sunday, and we got a good 10-15 minutes of her time just kind of chatting away with Lauren, and got her introduced to Lou so they could trade contact details with her and just have a general nice catch up with her, because she's an awesome person. So it was cool. She's excited about her new product, and she's worked really hard to get where she's at there, and was disappointed. I asked her about her bat collection, and she said she hadn't added to it recently. And I'm like, how can you not add to it? You literally can go and paint and draw stuff for people to trade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got the best set of skills to trade for that stuff,
Yeah, exactly. So she's like, I've been busy with that. I'm like, yeah, no, I understand. Like, you're obviously doing your good. I can't remember what she called it, her good person of the month thing when she was doing
like her gratitude set or something.
Gratitude, yeah. So she's doing those and everything else there. So she was looking pretty exhausted from obviously staying up late to doing everything. I'm like, what, are you going out? I mean, Chuck Stiles is from Chicago. Like, are you going to see the artists there? And she's like, honestly, I literally got home and I laid in bed for 2 hours, and then was supposed to go to dinner, and it just got room service. That was my night.
Passed out, yeah.
I was like, yep, sounds about right. So, but it was cool. I mean, for her to give us 15 minutes of her time just to shoot the shit and like that was pretty awesome there. And again, thanked her, so much for coming on the show, and how much we really could appreciate everything she did for her, and obviously we helped her take off. If it wasn't for us, that
well, if it wasn't for yeah, exactly, man, if it wasn't for us, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
So a reminder of that we help send your career skyrocketing.
That's it. Yeah, we got in there right before the start of the boom time, right?
Yeah. So, but it was cool. I mean, it was cool that she remembered us, and she said she had a good time talking to us. So whether she remembered it or not, I won't say. But I mean, the fact that she recognized me right off the first day, it was like, wow, it's pretty cool. Because I mean, how many interviews has she done in the last 2 years since we interviewed her? So
that's very true. But there's only you only have your first time once, right? Come on.
Exactly, and like I said, I mean, that was the whole selling point. Everything there is like, we are two guys in Scotland that talk sports cards. And I forget how niche we are, and how people because I said, you do it in North America, you're one of what, 100, 200 people.
Yeah, probably.
You can. There's so many different podcasts out there that talk about sports cards that we don't even know about, that they're North American, so they don't really stand out. Whereas we're the guys who do print runs and live in Scotland.
In Scotland, yeah. and forget lots of stuff and waffle on a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it was really cool way to kind of, as an icebreaker to meet a lot of people that way. Your suggestion of wearing a kilt, we might actually have to do that in
Telling
2
you,
years
man.
time.
Yeah. So let me get this right. Next year it's Cleveland, is that right? And then it returns to Chicago,
Correct.
and then maybe they'll do Atlantic City if they can get.
So that was their interesting debate. So they have so the dealer's going to pick where they go. It's
Interesting. Okay.
So they had the annual dealers meeting, and they had the pitch there. So the pitch was Atlantic City, Atlanta was one of the places they were trying to pitch there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember. It might have been Vegas, or I can't remember. Vegas was said, "Why are we not doing it at Vegas?" But I think the problem is Vegas. They want it every year, where it would be every 2 or 3 years, and they kind of said, "Well, it's not really worth our time there." And it was somewhere else in the Midwest. It might have been Cleveland again there. So they were trying to pitch it there, but the problem is Atlantic City covers a huge area of people that is just super dodgy.
You're pretty much you'll get as far north as New York quite comfortably, right? So.
Oh gosh, yeah. Like, I think within a 2-hour radius that pretty much captures like New York, Boston, Baltimore, New York,
Washington.
Yeah, so you can get a huge amount of people there. It's just harder for the people that are, say, West Coast to get all their stuff out there because you are 3,000 miles away. It is a trek to get out there. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And they don't really do West Coast, do they? Midwest is about as close as they get. Chicago.
Yeah, they haven't done anything West Coast ever. So
where's Cleveland? Where's Ohio?
And so it's only like 2 hours east of Chicago.
Is it? Oh, okay. So.
Yeah, it turns out everything's like 2 hours or 2.5 hours from Chicago. Because like Josh Trout, he's from Iowa. I'm like, so is that like a 4 or 5 hour drive? He's like, no, it's like 2.5. I'm like, okay. It's not a region I'm familiar with, and I have no idea how long things are. Like Ken Carlos from St. Louis, and like how far of a drive for that? It's like that's like a 6-hour drive. I'm like, okay, that's not that bad. I drive to Lake House for 6 hours, sure.
Yeah. I mean, my American geography is terrible. I at least have an excuse. I wasn't born there and lived there for a good portion of my life, so I have a very plausible deniability here, unlike yourself.
But okay, so look at it this way. So it's a 5-hour flight from Seattle to Chicago. So it's roughly the same distance as here as Greece. Right?
That's mad.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you kind of go, okay, that's a bit far away, and so yeah, so don't do it. I mean, Vegas would be the most logical place there, but I think the National won't do it because they want to come in every year there, and it goes back and forth between who does it from there. So I imagine it might go to Atlantic City there, but I think they have to safeguard that place a little bit more than it was.
They have to up their game a little bit, yeah.
I mean, that was the nice thing about the Chicago, because literally you could park across the street for the convention center, and there was you either can walk across the street and go there, or there was a sky bridge that you could take across. So it was like you didn't have to go far. Like, and even the hotel I was staying at was across the street from there. I could literally open my windows and see the convention center. So
and it absolutely right next to the airport as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went from the convention center to the airport in like 10 minutes. like drop off, not like the airport, like dropped off in like 10 minutes.
So it's pretty close, practically on the runway.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing again. Like I remember when we went to Milwaukee for the game, and it wasn't that far away, hour 15 or something.
less than 2 hour drive to go up to Milwaukee.
Yeah, and so when I'm staying in Kenosha, I'm like, I have no idea how far that is. Now, obviously, if you make that 16-mile journeys further south to Chicago, that would have caused more of a problem. But because you're so far out, it's really easy to get to.
Cleveland's not too far from Detroit. Good or bad, you decide. All right, Glenn.
So it's funny. Everyone had positive things about saying Cleveland. Everyone was like, you know what? I've enjoyed every time I've been there. So potentially it wouldn't be a bad thing to go. I don't think I would go next year. I think I would definitely take a year off and go back to Chicago. I don't know if there'd be anything else that I really didn't see this time that wouldn't see it. I guess if we go to Chicago next year, I would probably buy a few more things potentially.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
you know,
See, I was gonna. You've almost summed up quite nice. I was going to ask you to sum up your experience. What surprised you the most, I guess, and what were your sort of key takeaways from the experience? I mean, the obvious question is, would you go again? But we've answered that 100 times over. I think, I'm obviously desperate to go after having to miss out this year due to a number of complicated reasons. But never mind about that. So yeah, I'm kind of desperate to go. I would much rather do Chicago over Cleveland, but Cleveland over Atlantic City as well. So I'm easy Ozzy for either. But so yeah, I guess what surprised you the most about being there, and was there anything that you disliked about it, and then yeah, any kind of final thoughts?
Oh man, I guess I was surprised how unfriendly the dealers were. I literally thought that someone walking up said, "Hello, I have a podcast in Scotland, and I want to come over there. Would you like to come on the show?" Would be an easy way to go. Yes, sounds like fun, or a segue to some sort of conversation. And to be fair, like they were in sales mode at that point in time, so I think had I tackled it again, I would go earlier. But then you're still interrupting people who are still trying to set up. So you're damned if you don't. Kind of thing. But everyone was the people I ended up chatting to for a while, super friendly, like clearly passionate about the hobby, clearly liked certain segments of things, so if you wanted to collect pennants, you could collect pennants. There was someone that collected pennants. If you wanted presidential merchandise or political figures, there was a guy selling all that stuff there. So
so a lot more breadth than you were expecting, would it be safe to say?
Yeah, I mean, not to say that reminded me of like the last card show I went to back in 1991. I was trying to figure out when the last one I went to, but it was that on steroids, and just you really have to go in there with a plan of attack of what you wanted to see or what you're going to go after. So, like for Donna and Heavy J, they were Ginter diving. So, they would go, bring out their portable chair, sit down, go through a whole box of Ginter and make sure they can find what they were looking for. But I mean,
their portable chair. That's an interesting.
Oh yeah, that was
into the passion and commitment.
So you have to wear comfortable shoes. Like you need everything that like have insoles. Your feet hurt from walking and standing there. The heat wasn't as bad as I expected. So you went outside, you got blasted. So when everyone said like, we make sure you wear deodorant, like you do need deodorant, but the air conditioning was just fine. I mean, if autographed helmets were your thing, there was a guy that had giant stands there. There was a guy selling VHS tapes of classic games.
Wow.
I had like a retro TV, then his VCR hooked up to that and was selling tapes in there. And I was like, and so it was funny because I was going to approach him and talk, and Lou's like, I tried talking to this guy for years. Like he's got a screw loose. Like why would anyone want to talk to me about my VHS collection of tapes? I'm like, that sounds like awesome. He's like, yeah, I'm not interested. So,
my God. I thought we were niche. That is niche.
Yeah. And yeah, he still has a bunch of stuff on VHS that classic games on VHS.
It's not like tables at the National are cheap either.
It's around $2,000, $2,500. I think it went up to $2,500 this year. But again, for a lot of people, it's like it's a tax write-off, or it's a write-off for the business that you're going to go there and you're going to spend the money on the hotels, and you're going to see everyone you don't get to see for a while there. So, it might be the only time you see those people. So, yeah, I guess, like I said, I mean, I guess there was a lot of modern stuff that I wasn't. I don't know. I guess with the National, I expected a lot more vintage stuff there, and there was tons of vintage there. But I was surprised by all the modern there, and people trying to flip their $1,000 boxes, and I was surprised to see that the backyard breakers were there. I was really like, how they let anybody in there? They'll take your $2,500 from anybody. So
yeah. I heard their name pop up in one of the groups recently, and I can't remember why. It wasn't positive.
When is it ever positive from those guys?
But yeah, there you go.
Yep. they're still going, because we saw a couple of people with shirts, and I was like, are they part of the group, or are they
people
fans?
wearing their merch at the
Yep.
oh
There's people
wow.
wearing their merch there, so I don't know if they're giving out free shirts or what. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, like I don't know anyone that's had a real positive experience to them, and it's always been the negative stuff. So
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else said. Yeah, you find out where the secret toilets are, which are upstairs. I mean, the toilets were never bad, but it was if you went upstairs, it was definitely a few degrees cooler up there, definitely quieter. And if you could get a chair, you got the big comfy chairs, you could sit out there, and the toilets were never busy. So that was like my key spot. Yeah, I mean, because it's overwhelming. I mean,
I bet it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm
think
not
about
the
Costco.
world's biggest fan of crowds. Yeah.
Costco size sports car convention.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how you can do it, and it's loud and noisy, and the breakers are loud. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's if you're gonna go, the first stage is just get your bearings and wander around and get all the free merch that they give out those days there. Because there's always be free merch there, and then day 2 you need to kind of go, okay, what am I looking for, or what am I buying? So
yeah.
Then you can kind of go there, because again, like pretty much anything you can think of, somebody's gonna have it.
Yeah. It's just tracking it down, right? Finding it in a sea of craziness.
Yeah.
Glenn brought up a great point there. He was so Glenn was went last year and said he was shocked by the sheer number of people and the amount of kids with ultra secure card cases, obviously carrying their expensive booty around them. Was there lots of kids there? Was it more your kind of, like you say, your level of diversification was every different type of middle-aged white guy?
Yeah, there was kids. The sports car investor, his name's Jeff. He spells it Goff. That's what it is. I knew it was some generic name. So
apologies to all the Jeffs listening. Holy shit.
Yes. And they had a kids pavilion, and there was a bunch of stuff for the kids to go and trade and do stuff there. But
that's pretty cool.
There definitely was a few kids that had some high-end cards that they were looking to sell or trade or add the collection.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is there. Obviously, if you had the budget to spend the thousands of dollars on buying a nice box, you could absolutely do so. So there was plenty of kids there. I was surprised. Now, a lot of them were at the breakers area, because I guess that makes more sense to them, because if you have a limited budget, you're gonna go and try to buy into those.
That's probably how they know. That's probably how they know the hobby, right? And the old TikTok and all these other and whatnot, like you say, all these other platforms. That's probably how they digest or consume. I should say that's probably how they consume the hobby. So that kind of makes sense. But
yeah. Also, I mean, whatever kids in the hobby, it was good to see you there. I think the only women I saw were the ones that were working there. So
I didn't want to be so obvious as to ask that question.
Yes, yeah. So no, there was a few. Suze was around. She was at the Leighton's booth, I believe, or I can't remember where she's working now, but I did see her. And by the time I do talk to her, because I ran into Eric Norton and chatted to him for a bit, I missed her, and so I was gonna say hi. I think Chipper Jones walked right by me. That was the only kind of celebrity or star that I saw there.
And he didn't join everyone else and go, "Oh, holy shit, Teen Tops!"
Teen Tops, yeah, exactly. And then we had an adventure trying to figure out where the athletes were being holed up, so we can go and try to talk to them. So we went to a lot of areas that were restricted, and there was nobody there, unfortunately. There, so
that's unlucky. That's unlucky.
Yeah, apparently previously what they had done is they set out tables, so those guys just sit there for like 6 hours and sign all day. So so there was clearly an area we didn't know where to go to and find those guys signing stuff. But which is a shame. So we'll know. Well, next time we know. Now we know that let's say if we're in Chicago in 2 years' time, we take our media passes and immediately go in as soon as the doors open and go around and see everything.
Yeah, go. We'll set up base camp in the VIP signing area, and hey, maybe in 2 years' time we'll be there handing out merch and goodness knows whatever else. So. Awesome. Well, let's leave it at that for this week. A fantastic insight into Jason's time at the National. Like I say, I'm not jealous at all. While Jason was there, obviously I had a lovely weekend away in Greenock watching the football and enjoying a kebab pie. So you can line those two experiences up against each other and you can decide which one is best. But yeah, fantastic. Cheers for being our ambassador across there, I suppose would be a nice way of putting it. And like I say, it's good to pretty stoked to hear about the recognition more than anything else. That's quite interesting that people were remembering and noticing us. It's nice to know that we're memorable in some way, right? Even if it's for talking pish once or twice a month.
Yeah, exactly.
On the internet, right? So
I mean, I love everyone listens to the show and engages in the show, but it was really interesting to see that we actually do have a bit of a reach.
That's a really that feels really strange. I'm not gonna lie, that feels really strange.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's still cool though. Yeah. All right, so safe to say we're going to go back in 2 years' time, then, right?
Yeah, I figured 2 years' time we're good to go. I said I'm not sure what we'd miss out by going next year to Cleveland, other than to get your feet wet to have your first national out of the way there. But
I want to get back to Chicago, man.
But that's it. Then maybe that's what we try to do is we aim for 2 years' time, and we grab Glenn and we grab Moose, who's out there. Hi, Moose. It's good to see you as well.
Sure,
and we'll get maybe Ethan to come on down that way, and we just we ram all each other into a hotel and have a good old time doing it that way.
Man. But listen, with 2 years to plan it, we should be able to pull something off, right? That'd be pretty epic having the European contingent. Worth mentioning, obviously, as well. You weren't the only European there. I saw a number of posts from across, from quite a few people from the UK and the UK card collector scene made the trip across there. Quite a few guys from Germany and from elsewhere in Europe, the Nordics. So the guys behind the Nordic card show were there as well. So yeah, pretty cool. Quite a lot of a reasonable amount of people certainly from Europe making the trip over for the national, which is good to see. And I guess should only have positive impact on the amount of card shows and stuff that happen on these shores and also across Europe as well. Always good to see the success of the UK card shows. Funnily enough, the London card show just took place in London. Funnily enough, that's a stupid way to put it. Just this past weekend, and was a great success by all accounts. And of course, Scottish card show happened while Jason was away in Seattle there, and we came runner up in podcast of the year. I'm not sure we've actually spoken about it since it happened. I can't quite remember.
No, we haven't.
No, so we ended up runner up for UK card collector and podcast of the year. We did get a small trophy. Unfortunately, it arrived in 1,004 pieces, which was rather unfortunate. It was treated with all due respect by the Royal Mail, but I believe we're getting a replacement, so that's actually quite cool. So we shall show that off when we get our little replacement trophy. But I'm quite excited for that. As it happens, the Scottish Card Show next year happening in Glasgow in June of 2024. I don't think the venue's been announced yet, but I'll have a check and we can speak about it in the next show. But until then, we shall leave it there. If you just missed us, or you're just tuning in, or perhaps you're listening back on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever else you might be, you can get us as a podcast. This will be out on next Monday, so that's the 14th of August at 9 p.m. UK on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're also on Audible these days now as well. Hello, Daddy Bezos. And you can get us from 9 p.m. next Monday as a podcast, and Jason and I will be back in 2 weeks' time. So quick maths in my head, that is the 21st of August for our next live show. That will be 9 p.m. UK time, Monday, the 21st of August, and you can catch us across social media in between that time. Quite a few things going on just now, including tacos on baseball cards, which I'm sure we'll address on social media, and we might even talk about in 2 weeks' time about how hilarious it is. I might finally get to have my Chrome rant because we seem to be in the middle of Chrome season again. So yeah, you've got all these highlights to come. But until then, Jason, thanks very much for your time. Thank you for being an ambassador for Tea and Tops across in the US. Yeah, glad to hear you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So it's good to be back home now, and I can get back to eating normal portions of food again. So
oh, we didn't even talk about the food. You did the beef, right?
I did the Italian beef. I had the Chicago
Italian beef.
dog.
There you go.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I did the Italian beef at Bill Murray's place. So
yeah, they got the Caddyshack themed restaurant. I just want to go there, dude.
Well, luckily it's across the street from the National, so we're good to go.
Yeah, fantastic. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right, awesome. Well, until then, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, like I say, Monday the 21st, we'll be back live again. But yeah, until then, to Jason, thanks very much.
All right, guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
And yeah, thanks again, everybody. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Good night.